Good morning, America, and welcome back to Global Glimpse, your trusted source for in-depth analysis of the biggest political and economic stories shaping our world. Today's breaking headline: President Donald Trump has announced that the United States will impose a 100% tariff on all Chinese imports starting November 1st. The move, described as a necessary countermeasure against what Trump calls China's unfair trade and industrial manipulation, marks the most aggressive escalation yet in the ongoing U.S.-China trade tensions. Trump made the announcement in a late-night social media post and a subsequent press briefing from the White House lawn. He stated that these tariffs will apply to all categories of Chinese goods, from electronics and machinery to consumer products and raw materials. According to the administration, this step comes in response to China's new restrictions on exports of rare earth minerals, materials critical for everything from semiconductors to defense systems. Trump accused Beijing of weaponizing supply chains to undermine U.S. independence and said the tariffs are designed to restore fair competition and national strength. The president also revealed plans to introduce export controls on key U.S. software and advanced chip technology, targeting Chinese firms allegedly tied to government-backed surveillance and espionage efforts. This double-barreled approach, tariffs and export restrictions, underscores a major policy shift toward economic confrontation. Officials confirmed that this could lead to further measures if China retaliates. Economists and market analysts reacted immediately. Wall Street opened sharply lower this morning, the Dow dropping nearly 700 points and the Nasdaq sliding over 3%. Tech companies with exposure to China, like Apple, Nvidia, and Tesla, saw steep declines. Global investors fear another round of trade-related volatility that could shake supply chains and consumer prices. The dollar, meanwhile, saw mixed movement, strengthening briefly before pulling back as bond yields spiked. Commodity prices fell, with oil and copper leading declines, while gold ticked higher as investors sought safe havens. China's reaction was swift and stern. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce condemned the move, calling it an act of economic aggression. Beijing announced that it would respond with comprehensive countermeasures, including new tariffs on U.S. goods, port fees on American ships, and potential restrictions on critical exports. State media outlets accused Washington of jeopardizing global stability and urged allied nations to resist American trade coercion. This escalation couldn't come at a more delicate time. Just weeks ago, both nations had hinted at tentative progress toward stabilizing trade relations. Now, with these new tariffs, analysts say hopes for reconciliation are effectively off the table, at least for now. Diplomatic channels remain open, but sources in Washington report that upcoming talks have been postponed. From a domestic standpoint, reactions in Congress have been divided. Republican lawmakers largely praised the move as a strong defense of U.S. economic sovereignty. Senator Josh Hawley called it a long-overdue strike for American workers. However, moderate Republicans and most Democrats criticized the decision, warning it could lead to higher consumer prices and global economic instability. Senator Elizabeth Warren argued that tariffs this extreme punish working families and threaten the fragile economic recovery. Beyond politics, the business community is bracing for impact. U.S. retailers warn that the cost of everything from clothing to electronics could rise dramatically. Manufacturers dependent on Chinese components face supply disruptions. The National Association of Manufacturers issued a statement urging the administration to reconsider or phase in the tariffs, gradually citing fears of inflation and layoffs. Internationally, key U.S. allies are watching with concern. The European Union expressed unease over protectionist escalation, while Japan and South Korea have begun reviewing contingency trade plans. Analysts say these moves may push nations to further diversify their supply chains, potentially accelerating global decoupling between Western economies and China. The legal and strategic ramifications are equally significant. Trade law experts question whether such sweeping tariffs are permissible under existing WTO agreements. Some predict China will file a formal complaint. Within the U.S., industry groups may challenge the tariffs in court, arguing that the president is overstepping executive authority under the Trade Expansion Act. Meanwhile, the White House insists the move is necessary to protect national interests. Officials argue that over-reliance on Chinese imports poses a strategic risk and that tariffs will push companies to reshore production. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen emphasized that economic security is national security. And these tariffs are part of a broader effort to ensure supply chain independence in critical sectors. The broader economic picture, however, remains uncertain. Economists estimate the new tariffs could add up to $300 billion in additional trade costs, potentially cutting U.S. GDP growth by up to 0.5% next year if the policy remains in place. Inflationary pressures could resurface, particularly in consumer goods and tech hardware. Looking ahead, much depends on China's next move. If Beijing retaliates aggressively, for example, by halting exports of key rare earth minerals or imposing its own tech restrictions, global markets could enter a prolonged period of instability. There is also speculation that both countries could seek to form new trade alliances. China might deepen ties with Russia and ASEAN states, while the U.S. could court India, Vietnam, and Mexico as alternative manufacturing hubs. In summary, Trump's decision to impose a 100% tariff on Chinese imports represents more than a trade measure. It's a declaration of economic rivalry, national resilience, and strategic realignment. The global implications will unfold in the weeks ahead, with ripple effects on prices, jobs, technology, and diplomacy. If you found this analysis insightful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Global Glimpse. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a major geopolitical update. We'll continue following this developing story and its consequences for both Washington and Beijing. Until next time, stay informed, stay alert, and stay curious.